Hello dear YouTubers, you know where you are. This is the Real Turkey channel and I'm Atilla Yesilada, your regular host, commentator and jack of all trades. This is going to be one of the decisive weeks for Turkish economy and politics. Mr. Erdogan, our president, is flying to New York to make several speeches at the UN opening ceremonies where he hopes to meet President Trump. That summit, of course, is extremely important if it takes place, because Mr. Erdogan, right before he left for New York at the airport, told that Turkey has finished all of its preparations for a military incursion into North East Syria, which certainly doesn't fit the United States' intentions in the area. Pentagon is an ally of Syrian Kurds who live in that area. So if Mr. Trump doesn't approve Mr. Erdogan's request for a safe zone where Turkey can resettle 2 to 3 million Syrian refugees, we may see another military operation in northeast Syria, which will have a rather drastic impact on politics and economy. On politics, Mr. Trump may forgive such a slight to Pentagon and to American allies. However, the Congress is extremely infuriated. There are already several bills to slap sanctions on Turkey, and some of these bypass Trump. So Trump will have no flexibility to waive or postpone these sanctions. Turkish economy is very weak, which is going to be the next thing I'm going to discuss. And another set of sanctions, no matter how light they may be, would definitely change investor sentiment. It would also change the sentiment of global bankers who lend to Turkey, without which loans we cannot survive. Thus, just like we had experienced last August when Turkey refused to release Pastor Brunson, Turkish lira could take a major shock. Depreciation of the currency, which would slow down economic activity, raise inflation, and really render the debt problem of the corporate sector intractable. What do I expect? Honestly, I expect the worst, for the simple reason that there is really no set time for a long discussion between Erdogan and Trump. They're going to meet sometime, somewhere. How long it will last, whether Mr. Trump will have his mind on Turkey or on other subjects. Trump's mind wavers more than mine. So whether this summit, if it takes place, is going to be productive, is going to relate to Erdogan, United States' final decision on Syria, S-400s, Halkbank sanctions, the Fethullah Gülen, the guy who plotted the coup in 2016, can be solved. What really scares me is Mr. Trump just approving everything Erdogan says without really knowing what it means or without consulting his national security team or the Congress. Then Erdogan sends the military into northeast Syria and the Congress revolts, as well as, of course, Kurdish citizens in Turkey, assuming there would be unfortunate civilian casualties. This is the main risk, political risk, that will determine the fate of the Turkish economy and markets. If all goes well, if Mr. Erdogan is convinced that a smaller, lighter safe zone is also acceptable to Turkey, there will be no military incursion. And Turkey and the United States will be able to improve their relationship, and financial flows to Turkey will continue. Now, to emphasize the importance of American sanctions and how they could damage the Turkish economy, I want to talk about Turkey's bad loan problem. Turkey's banking regulator is named BRSA. BRSA last week suddenly told banks they need to reclassify roughly $8 billion worth of loans as non-performing, which means they will have to be written off from the profits and capital adequacy ratios will have to be adjusted downwards. According to industry insiders, Turkish banks' profits will go down by at least 20% this year. Other analysts, such as investment banking researchers, claim that there is another 20, maybe $25 billion worth of loans which are extremely distressed, delinquent, and should also be classified as non-performing. If that's the case, then the Turkish banking industry will not be able to make any new loans and will have to raise capital. The problem is, Turkish banking industry does not want to raise capital simply because it is Mr. Berat Albayrak who decides what loan and deposit rates can be charged and which companies will receive loans. I also have a suspicion that the government arranges loan restructurings between favored companies and banks to prevent defaults or Chapter 11 applications, which simply adds more bad loans to bank balance sheets. Modern economies cannot grow without credit issuance. If credit issuance slows or declines, the economy will inevitably enter a recession in a quarter or two. That has been the case in the Turkish economy as well. Currently, private banks are not lending at all. They are not even replenishing their maturing loans. It's only state banks which are lending to the consumers and corporates, and they may be running out of liquidity fairly soon. So imagine a scenario where Erdogan and Trump would disagree. There would be a military incursion into North East Syria, which would force the American Congress to slap sanctions on Turkey. That would destroy sentiment and credit flows. Banks will not be able to borrow from abroad, which means their balance sheets will not expand. They will have to write off the bad loans, and they will have no liquidity left to make new loans. Turkey enters a recession. This is how critical this week is. Turkey needs an agreement between Trump and Erdogan that satisfies both parties. Otherwise, I'm preparing for myself for rather severe market shocks and a very cold winter. Dear YouTubers, thank you for watching The Real Turkey channel. We provide English language content from Turkey about economics, politics, finance, and business. Please subscribe if you liked the video, and do share it with your friends and other parties which may be interested in Turkey. Atilla Yesilada saying goodbye from Istanbul, Turkey.